Yeah, I want to talk about shooting micro budget or no budget projects in Los Angeles, films, music videos, short films, whatever, TV shows. I'm familiar with it. I went to school out there. I did film school in Los Angeles, shot a lot of tiny stuff in Los Angeles, and it's a pain because it's a film town. I'll get into that in a minute, but the reason I want to talk about this is because recently a TikToker tried to shoot a flash mob music video at a Los Angeles Target as the Target was trying to close. And when she got kicked out by security, she posted it online to say, look what they did to me. And the internet was like, no, you're wrong. And they absolutely stuffed her. I won't get into the political side of this, but yeah, she was wrong and she thought she was right. And then the internet corrected her intensely. I'm not going to link her stuff. I'm not going to point to any of her stuff. If you've seen it, you've seen it. If you haven't, you almost certainly don't care. But I do want to talk about the filming in LA stuff and especially what she could have done to actually make it work. And so there's going to be a lot of caveats in this thought experiment because the first one is I'm going to assume she's just naive and not well informed and not, just a jackass is I guess what it is. Up and coming film students, film schools are notorious for this. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to make a lot of faux pas. That's the nature of the game. It's what happens, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't get punished for it. You just got to learn from your mistakes. And so I'm hoping she learns from this horrible mistake, as she certainly is learning right now from the idea that be careful what you post on the internet when you think you're right, because you might not be right. So I don't think that's controversial. So yeah, so she had a flash mob show up in costume and makeup at this Los Angeles Target while they're closing, and the security guard comes in as they're trying to do a choreography dance and blocks the camera and says, you can't do this. And they stop and they said, fine, we'll do it without the music. And then they started just singing it. And he said, that's it, I'm calling the cops. And they get out of there and I don't think there was a cop interaction, but yeah. So yeah. Even if you're not a film person, I think it's really telling that she has never worked in the service industry or the retail or the restaurant industry, that she thought the best time to shoot something, to crowd a place like this, is closing time. And it's the opposite. Like, what was that? So I don't really need to go deeply into that other than to say, usually these stores' policies is every customer has to leave before you can lock the doors and start, shutting everything down. And so you're waiting on the customers that are still there. Also, technically, I don't think her whole flash mob were considered customers. I think you could argue they were trespassing because customers buy stuff. So the cops could have actually, fined them, or if it escalated worse, arrested them because they were trespassing at a Target by trying to shoot this video. There's also a conversation to be had about how big the camera or how many people constitutes filming stuff. It's kind of a moot point in LA because it's film town, treats everything like a production no matter what. So even if you're doing something on a phone, unless it's you holding a phone, talking into a phone, anything more than that, multiple people, a real camera, any of that kind of stuff is considered a production, no matter if there's a budget, no matter if ... because it's film town. So I think her first mistake was shooting in LA. I'll get into that later, but yeah. She's lucky she didn't get in trouble with the police, honestly, but the internet has definitely interneted all over her, and that's hopefully she learns from that choice, and that was just a bad, ill-informed choice. But let's talk about it. So if she really wanted to film in a Target in Los Angeles, assuming Target, the company, allows filming, and I honestly don't know if they do, a lot of big companies just have a universal rule, not even in LA, but just everywhere, no filming, because it's more trouble than it's worth. You'll know this if you've worked on any film where you were using somebody's house or apartment. They'll let you shoot there once, and then they will have learned their lesson and realized it's a nightmare, and they'll probably never let you shoot there again. That's just what it is. It's the nature of the beast. Even in film school, our film school had a list of places that we were banned from, that we were blacklisted from, because other film students had done something. And these are like studio locations and like proper filmmaking venues that our film school had been banned from because of bad behavior historically. So much so that when I was shooting my thesis, I decided to save a bunch of money and shoot on campus because shooting on campus is free. It's a film school. The campus is very familiar with shooting on campus. It's not a big deal. I was going to use the laundry room in one of the dorms as like a laundromat. And I had permits. I had everything signed. I had permission. And the week before shooting, my permits got taken back and shredded because something happened with some other film student production that week, it seems. I don't know who they are, and it's probably for the best that I don't, because I would have been angry. But I got my permits destroyed because some film students in my school upset the housing and dining services, and they put a moratorium on shooting in general. So even a film school, the school itself is film friendly. You upset people, and they take away your permission. Sucked. I had to completely retool my thesis project, and it was no longer a laundromat because I didn't have access to one. Sucked. Anyway, it's so bad behavior travels. All is to say, I would be surprised if a company as big as Target would allow filming of any kind. But even in LA, it'd be expensive because in LA, especially because it's film town, because every property owner or company has interacted with film people. Pay me. Even if their policy is sure we allow filming, it's pay me. And because the studios are there, they're used to working with studio movies and studio TV shows, which means they're expecting a lot of pay. This TikToker, I'm not convinced paid anything. She certainly didn't get permission, but if she wanted to shoot in a Target and Target was cool with it, she would have had to pay probably some kind of studio level rate, which is a crazy number, to shoot in there. It probably would have been cheaper just to book a soundstage and hire a crew, a scene and set design crew to build, that checkout area of the Target. That would have been cheaper than probably booking a Target. Also, most companies, you have to do it after hours. You have to shoot after hours because they don't want you interacting with either the workers or the patrons. So there's that. Again, all ill-informed, the worst of it still being the fact that she thought the closing time at the Target was the appropriate time to do that. Yeah. Let's talk about the flash mob aspect of it. Of what I know of flash mobs, they're semi-spontaneous. They're kind of, choreographed or planned, but the idea is people just show up and it's a whole thing. It works in public places like a public park because public. If you do it at a Target, which is technically a private company, it's trespassing. That is trespassing. So, but yeah, I feel like flash mobs, that's a real risk you're taking if you're trying to take it seriously, like a music video, for instance, just because depending on rules, which I'd have to look them up, even if you're in a public place like a public park or somewhere, if you get more than X amount of people, that's considered an organized group, and so that's a different kind of permit. And so, yeah. But either way, LA is a film town. Everything has to be permitted, even if you just have like a handshake agreement on a location. The police are very familiar with shooting, and so they know to ask for permits. And you better have them ready because otherwise they'll kick you out. Even if your permits are legit, if they don't like something that somebody's doing, they can shut it down, and that basically the permits are done. So you can have your permits revoked in real time just because the cops are having a bad day. It's legit. She obviously didn't do any of this. I'd be really surprised if she ever pulled permits based on how she was behaving. Again, that's a little judgy, but I'm going under the assumption that she's just not experienced in this, not informed in this. It's a lot. It's very involved to shoot in Los Angeles. It's very inconvenient, especially if you don't have money, because of the permits and the permission and all the kind of stuff. In other places, it's way less of a thing. I'm of the opinion that she thought, which I believe is still a thing somewhere, maybe out in the Midwest, in a small town somewhere, that it's exciting for a company to have film people come in and do it, that whole thing. I believe that still exists somewhere, but a Los Angeles Target is not that thing. And so not only are they not gonna have a sense of humor about the pageantry and the excitement of film people being here, but they're used to it. So pay me or leave, even if they allow it to begin with, which a lot of them don't. Anyway, what could she have done differently? Again, she could have paid. It would have been really expensive. She could have built a set, which would have been slightly less expensive probably, but still, you know, inappropriately expensive. I think her best bet was, whether or not she had money, go do this flash mob thing if that was necessary. Go do it out of town. I'm thinking as the like minimum distance from Los Angeles, Lancaster, California, maybe. What's that town on the way to Vegas? Barstow, California. Hold on, I'm getting a text. Oh, cool. My car's ready. Barstow, California. That might be, I'm not convinced the Barstow, California Target would be okay with shooting, or, you know, they're still close enough to town that they still may charge, but you may have a chance of the you know, the pageantry of film people coming all the way out to Barstow, although it's on the way to Vegas, and LA and Vegas, there's a lot of back and forth driving. I think the best bet would be somewhere way outside of, you know, go to a different state, a state that doesn't do films, find a small town, find a mom and pop grocery store, be friends with them, talk them into shooting after hours. I think that's the move. I think that's the only way, especially if you don't have money, that you could do that. If you find a small town, they probably don't care about permits. They probably don't care about that kind of stuff. After hours, it's probably not a busy store anyway because it's a small town. You'll be treated better anyway because they don't have the memories of other film productions coming in and ruining things. That's what I would have done as the indie filmmaker. If this TikToker came to me and said, I want to make a flash mob music video in a Target, I would first thing I would say is, we got to get out of town. We got to get a bus. We got to hire a bus and take the whole flash mob 2 hours, 3 hours at least away from Los Angeles to a small town. Minimum, we need to find a small grocer or a small, you know, some kind of store that could pretend to be a Target and do it there, and that's the only way to do it. So I don't know, hopefully she learns from this. I don't know, just the vibe of how she was kicked out and the fact that she posted the video of getting kicked out and thought I was the one that was right. I hope an attitude change is where she ends up, because she's gonna get herself in trouble. I feel like she dodged a real bullet, legally and filmmaking wise, by just getting kicked out and not having to interact with the cops necessarily. She obviously is paying for it now because of the internet and posting it on the internet, but I don't know. I don't have a huge sense of humor about, you know, TikTokers going in and doing stunts to begin with, but I'm okay with the idea that somebody's just holding a camera and doing something in public. It's a problem. It's a problem once you can establish that, like, a TikToker, for instance, is making profit off of their TikTok, because then by definition it's a commercial endeavor, and that makes some real legal problems. And so even in places that don't expect permits, all of a sudden you probably need permits and you probably need production insurance and all this other stuff that obviously TikTokers are not necessarily going to consider or have even been exposed to. So yeah, I don't know. Simple things. Don't be an asshole. That's really what it is. Don't be an asshole. And if you have that feeling in the back of your head that people might think what you're doing, especially in public, could be construed as an asshole, maybe really think it through, because there's a really good chance that just because you think what you're doing is the greatest thing ever, that might not be the case for everybody else. And also, don't try any of that in Los Angeles, because everybody's used to it and they have no time for bullshit. That's really what it is. It's incredibly inconvenient to be an independent, small, micro-budget filmmaker in Los Angeles. It just is. You have great access to people. You have great access to actors. Most places, in the apartment contract that you sign when you lease an apartment, it says you can't film here. That's how fundamental the filmmaking industry is in Los Angeles. So, yeah. Yeah, just be cool. That's really what it is. Be cool. Try not to step on toes. and be nice and be gracious. And mistakes happen. Mistakes happen. And the thing you got to do to make sure that people will still want to interact with you after you've made a mistake is own up to your mistake, apologize for your mistake, don't make that same mistake again. And if you're giving off a vibe that this wasn't my problem, this was your problem, good luck to you. Because most people who are serious about this kind of stuff, even if you consider TikTok part of the film industry, I really don't necessarily, but maybe I'm just an old fogey. Pros don't have time for bullshit. So yeah, that's what it is. Good luck. Like, share, subscribe. Here's to more TikTok music videos interfering with regular people's lives. See ya.